You deny resources to anyone, it's because you hate them and want them dead. Like you're just denying oxygen to people laboring on their last iron lung breath of mortality. And the latest, of course, is a woman who has wonderfully manicured nails and eyebrows by Zorro and perfect makeup, who was crying about her toddler who died after she crossed the border illegally into the United States, was in some sort of detention. I've heard various stories. I've seen pictures of her looking healthy and happy with her baby's pierced ears in Mexico, I think it is. But she crossed over to the border and she was detained, and then at some point, some people say sooner, some people say later, her baby died in custody. Now that, of course, to me would indicate that her baby was unwell before she crossed over or got sick during the crossover, in which case, how can the American taxpayers be blamed for a woman seemingly without a father or a husband who brings a toddler across a desert to a highly dangerous border crossing? If you bring your child to the commission of a crime, that's on you. That's not on the American taxpayer. If you bring a toddler to a home invasion, to breaking into a home, and the toddler gets injured or hurt, that's on you. It's not on the American taxpayers. And if you bring a toddler when you're trying to break into a country in the commission of a crime in a very dangerous cartel-controlled neighborhood, that's on you. That is not on the American taxpayer in any conceivable way, shape, or form. So this is stuff that I just find completely incomprehensible. How is it white people's fault? How is it the American taxpayers' fault that this woman chooses to make this dangerous trek with her toddler? And they're not coming for freedom. So, oh, I want a chance for a better life. No, that's not true. What you want is a chance to get your heavily manicured fingers into the wallets of the American taxpayer. And I refuse anymore to have more sympathy for people and their children than they have for themselves and their own children. Why should I care more about your child than you do? It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And it's going to swamp and drown us all in an endless baby bird feeding outstretched fingers of taxpayer pocketbook pillaging. I can't do it. I can't. Whether it's compassion fatigue or empathy burnout or pathological altruism short circuit, I don't know, but I'm out of it. I'm done. I'm absolutely done. Because they're not coming for freedom, they're coming for free stuff. I want a better life. No, you want free healthcare, you want free education, you want free roads, you want to gain the fruits of a civilization hard won from a wilderness without actually having to go through the significant effort of building that civilization. Can you imagine trying to cut down the back 40 and plant a farm with those heavily manicured nails and that perfect makeup? How was she released from custody? How is she testifying in front of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? How is any of this happening? It makes no sense. Can you just be released from a detention center, get perfect makeup and hair done, and get a perfect manicure, and then go and wring some crocodile tears of Democrat immigrant pillaging sympathy out of AOC? It makes no sense at all. This is all staged. It's all a photo op. Is it even her kid? I don't know. Who knows at this point? It's just a heavily sentimentalized, onrushing estrogen grab at the wallets of the nation. And I cannot anymore care for people and their children more than they care for their own children. If you don't care enough about your child to not take your child on a dangerous border crossing, if you don't care enough for your child to apply for asylum in the honorable, decent, legal way, to show yourself at a port of entry, to apply at an embassy, if you don't care about enough for your child to do the process safely, and then you ask me to cry because your child has died, I can't do it. I can't do it. This is like the pathological altruism curse of the white race, which is, oh, we care so much about everyone else, even more than they care about themselves, and that's just going to work out fine. Because there was originally in the West these things called friendly societies where you paid in your dues and you got great stuff out of it. Like you worked and you paid. It was kind of like a union, but it was voluntary, and it encompassed things like the provision of health care and unemployment insurance and old age insurance and just accidental death and dismemberment insurance and injury insurance. So you paid into it, and if something bad happened, you got out of it. And it was an amazing system. It was about 100 years ago, like the Shriners and these lodges and so on, like the dim echoes of all this kind of stuff. It was an amazing system. And for 1 day's wages, you got access to a doctor for 365 days of the year. And that's one of the reasons why doctors hated it, is it drove down what they wanted to charge for people. So this system wherein you paid into sort of social insurance and then you got security out of it was a great system. Now, then it was killed by regulations, it was killed by the government, and it was finally displaced by the welfare state. But the welfare state is different. So insurance, of course, works through uncertainty. You cannot apply for fire insurance for your house when your house is currently on fire because there's no uncertainty, there's no doubt. You cannot apply for, I don't know, insurance against getting cancer when you've already been diagnosed with cancer. There has to be uncertainty in the future in order for insurance to work, and you have to have more people paying in that are taking out, right? That's just the way it works. So the way that the welfare state was originally conceived of was quite simple. It was, well, we got a bunch of taxpayers who are paying into the system. Every now and then something bad is going to happen that was unforeseen, and strangely enough, regulations and other things have driven away these friendly societies, so we're going to give people a safety net, right? A soft place to fall if something accidental and unforeseen happens that isn't covered by regular insurance and blah, blah, blah. But you had to pay into the system, and you had to accidentally lose your job, right? Because if you got fired for unemployment insurance, if you got fired, you couldn't get it. So it had to be like layoffs or something like that, right? So it had to be uncertain in terms of the future. There's no way that insurance can work. And this is one of the things now that has happened to American healthcare system. The American healthcare system is this. They say, well, you can't deny people for pre-existing conditions. And that comes out of this weird World War II thing where employers weren't allowed to they weren't allowed to give raises to people, and so they just paid their health insurance instead, which was the best thing that they could do. But then your health insurance was tied to the job, and if you switch jobs and blah, 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 right? So in America, in a lot of places, in a lot of ways, you are not allowed to be denied for pre-existing conditions. What does that mean? Well, it means that people wait until they get sick until they get health insurance, right? And that's one of the reasons why Obama had to force you to buy health insurance. It's just endless regulations, escalations of more and more red tape. So you have to be healthy before you get health insurance. Once you're sick, it doesn't work. And this is one of the basic fundamental mathematical realities of life. Now, how have things changed now? With the welfare state, well, you don't need to have worked and paid into the system and then be subject to something bad that happened, right? Because uncertainty has been taken out of the equation. And people say, oh, America was a nation of immigrants. Nope. False. False on just about every level. First of all, it was a nation of settlers. Settlers are very different from immigrants. Settlers come out and carve the country, and immigrants come and enjoy the fruits of their labor. So, no, a nation of settlers, not of immigrants. Secondly, if people say, well, it was a nation of immigrants, and you've got hold my lamp beside the golden door and the Statue of Liberty in the 19th century, it's like, okay, well, then that was all white immigration. America was created as a white ethno-state, a white Christian, largely Protestant ethno-state. The Irish and the Catholics were a certain amount of challenge to integrate, but boy, I'm sure the Somalis will be next in line, no problem. But the reality is that you have a job, the idea, let's just say welfare or unemployment insurance, you have a job, something bad happens, you don't have any savings, we'll tide you over for a couple of weeks till you get a new job, right? There's got to be uncertainty. You have to have a job, being paying into it, right? Well, the welfare state, right? Oh, your husband got hit by a truck on his way to mail his life insurance check. That's really unfortunate, so we don't want you to live in the gutter, so let's give you some money and so on. And the more children you have, the more money we're going to give you because you got mouths to feed and so on. But that's all nonsense now. Because now you don't ever have to have paid into the system, and now you can specifically come to a country knowing for sure that you're going to be taking out more than you put in. And again, insurance can't work that way. And the welfare state was supposed to replicate some of the facets of insurance, which means you don't know if there's going to be a disaster, but if a disaster happens. So when people, let's say this woman, right, she comes in, she's got a baby, she comes in, she's not paid anything into the system because she's been in another country. She's not paid anything into the system, and she's already a liability for sure. For sure, even if she gets a job, but of course, if she gets a job, then her money's all going to go into childcare, right? So she's not going to add anything to the economics of America. She's going to, in fact, take an enormous amount from the economics of America. She's coming in, she has a sick child, she has no husband, boom, 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 she's automatically going to be taking out. And it's true. I mean, the illegals in particular take out $7 in resources for every dollar they pay in taxes. So in this situation, you're trying to set up an insurance system where people who are already sick apply for health insurance, and people whose houses are already on fire are the only people applying for fire insurance, and people who have already lost their jobs are the only people applying for unemployment insurance. So it can't possibly work. And I understand the actions of each individual, but there have to be sane people in the world who push back against this system which cannot work. It cannot mathematically continue. And for America to open its borders, and of course the plan, this hysterical escalation of this open borders rhetoric and provision of free health care, it's just a way to bring people into the country who are going to reliably vote or fraudulently vote for the Democrats, or appeal to demographics who are already voting and further cement their vote for the Democrats, right? They can't win against Donald Trump. They can't win against the record high stock market. They can't win against low unemployment. They simply can't win. And they've lost credibility because they predicted all these disasters, and these disasters did not come to fruition. So they can't win. And whoever they're going to field is just going to be some, leftist lunatic who can't add the number of toes they have together and get to anything close to 10. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to open the borders as much as humanly possible. They're going to bribe people to come into the country. There's going to be massive voter fraud. And that's the plan. And that's the plan. So by 2020, America, the experiment that did not even last a quarter of a millennia, will be 244 years. And it will come down to that.
And we don't have a merit-based system. We have this catch and release system that we've been having. No, it's not going to work. We're never going to have that same safe, brilliant America with the American dream again. And the drugs that are pouring in. I mean, the opioid crisis right now is something that is so underestimated, and nobody talks about it. Nancy Pelosi doesn't talk about it. President Trump has been the first president that has really discussed this publicly and talked about the source of that, which is often MS-13 and the drugs pouring through the border. Families are in crisis. Families are breaking up because of these drugs, and it's time that we really put a stop to it. And the best way to do it is a physical barrier.
Yeah, and you talk about what you mentioned earlier about immigration and why people come to this country, and especially if you're living in Central America and South America, and you talk about MS-13, the reason why people come here, by and large, the reason why people immigrate to the United States is because of the rule of law.
Yes.
Because there is no rule of law where they come from, because there's no contract law, and you can't go to the government, and so people come to America because of the rule of law. Mm-hmm. So that's very important to all immigrants that come here. And so if your first act, again, is an illegal act, mm-hmm. then it blows away the concept of why you're coming here. You're coming here to escape where you don't have rule of law, and you're coming here because you want the rule of law. And again, I think that by and large, most Hispanics are for legal immigration.
Yes.
And limiting illegal immigration. Mm-hmm. And look, let's be honest, it's economic as well, because you've got people that come here and they're cheap labor. You got you've got the organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, that want to keep open borders, and they want comprehensive immigration reform, whatever that means. Basically, they want the cheap labor. Let's be honest. Okay, that's what they want.
Sure. Well, you guys, you know what? I want to remind you of the number again to call in. It's 855-855-WALL. Again, that's 855-855-WALL, and webuildthewall.us. Webuildthewall.us. We are taking matters into our own hands. We are building the wall, and we're going to get that wall built. You guys remember, if 63 million Trump supporters that elected Trump for his promise to build the wall, if you all donated $80, we can get that wall built, and we can get $5 billion. But if you can donate $500, if you can donate $1,000, everything helps. And in a minute, we're going to bring in our first guest. Sheriff David is going to be here in just a minute. He's going to be joining us. And we're also going to check in with Midge to see how those donations are going and check in with her. And remember, webuildthewall.us. Go to We Build the Wall to see all of the updates right now in real time.
Hey, it's Midge again, and we are still here, still raising money. The last update I got was still, I think, $358,000. I think we're going to have some more live feed coming through here on that shortly. But I wanted to give a very special shout out. Sometimes family members don't get enough love, and I just wanted to say that my own mother is indeed watching today because she donated $1,000. So Mom, from me to you, thank you so much for your amazing donation. And yeah, hi fam. Thanks for watching.
Distracting us.
So just to remind everyone again, you guys can make donations that are small, large, and keep them coming. We're trying to raise money and build this wall.
$652.
Oh, premiums. Let me tell you guys more about the premiums. Remember, for $100, you can get a personalized brick paver that can have your name on it. You can put your company logo on it, anything you want. And those are going to be at the base of the wall here behind me. For $1,000, you can get a plaque on a bollard, on those steel bollards, which are here behind me, as you see. Again, those are personalized. So Mom, because you donated $1,000, I'm hoping maybe we could talk about it. Maybe you could put my name, maybe my Instagram handle on there. I don't know. We'll talk. And for $5,000, you can get a large bollard or one of these plates that are seen at the top of the wall. These are to prevent, people, I think, at the top from climbing over or getting injured. So for those, they're large steel plates. You can have your company logo put on them. This is amazing.
Rachel Maddow cried on TV. Surely this means we must erase the borders. There's an audio tape of a kid crying. Let's just get rid of laws. Give me a break. If you really think the left cares about the children and not the raw lust for power, then you're an idiot. They don't care about children being separated from their parents. As soon as Trump passed an executive order stopping that exact thing, they said it wasn't good enough. Aren't you just sick of these phonies constantly trying to claim the moral high ground? Oh yeah, you really care about the children while simultaneously advocating the kidnap and rape of a child, while simultaneously encouraging people to target the children of Border Patrol agents, while simultaneously threatening Donald Trump Jr.'s 4-year-old daughter. Yeah, you really care about the children, don't you? This guy, he really cares about the children. He cares about the children so much, he called up a Republican congressman's office and threatened to kill his children. Oh, you care about the children. You care so much, you're literally trying to end a program that protects these children from sex trafficking. You care about the children so much, you're incentivizing them to make dangerous, daunting journeys where they risk rape and death. 80% of Central American girls are raped, attempting to reach the US. That's what you're incentivizing. That's how much you care about the children. 10,000 of the 12,000 children are sent by their parents. Their parents chose to separate from them long before they reached America. Don't care about that, do you? Oh, but you care about the children being kept in detention cages, except when Obama did it for years, then you didn't give a shit.
And we're just going to show you a few pictures of some of those scenes where these people are being held.
Well, that looks very unorganized.
Reminds me a lot of concentration camps, honestly.
It looks more like a concentration camp to me, the way the kids are being held. Are those handcuffs?
I've worked in education and migration for 2 decades now, and this is fucking bullshit.
What if I told you that those photos are from 2014 when Obama was president?
Yeah, when families were being separated under Obama, didn't care about that, did you?
They were all there in 2014 under President Obama. And my question to you, Senator Baldwin, is did you speak up against them then?
You know, on this issue that,
No, she didn't, because there was no political power to be gained from your fake outrage. Just like you didn't give a shit about Obama drone striking kids all over the world. Oh, but now you've suddenly developed a conscience. Now a Republican's in office. Gee, what a coincidence. But you really care about the children. That's why you were so outraged when Hillary Clinton said the children needed to be sent back.
In southern Mexico, they should be sent back now.
Well, they should be sent back. Just because your child gets across the border, that doesn't mean the child gets to stay.
No, that's right. You said absolutely fuck all about it. Just like you said fuck all when Obama said the same thing.
Our message absolutely is don't send your children unaccompanied on trains or through a bunch of smugglers. Do not send your children to the borders. If they do make it, they'll get sent back. More importantly, they may not make it.
Oh, but you really care about the children. You care so much about the children. You demand MS-13 gang members be treated humanely. Animals that routinely massacre children. You care so much. The left really cares about families being separated. I mean, it's not like they sat back for decades and watched families in America fall apart while divorce skyrocketed and broken homes became the norm, is it? Time magazine cares so much about the children. Except when it comes to Americans having children, in which case they tell them not to at every available opportunity. And no, this isn't a Nazi policy, you utter simpleton. An Obama-era Ninth Circuit Court decision isn't comparable to one of the biggest mass murderers in human history, you utter clowns. The Nazis separated children from their parents so they could murder them. Pretending that that is anything akin to this is an insult to actual Holocaust victims, so shut the fuck up. It's funny, isn't it, how this has played out? It was the Ninth Circuit that ruled it was inhumane to keep kids with their parents. But now the left is saying it's inhumane to separate kids from their parents. So the only solution is to release the parents. Catch and release. Which will coincidentally create the very open border insanity that the left wanted all along, while importing a huge new voting bloc who will later vote for them, while bringing in millions more wage slaves for big business to exploit as cheap labour. Gee, it's almost like they planned it all from the start, and that all this crying and wailing, all this propaganda, all this fake imagery was just a ruse to emotionally manipulate everyone into supporting their real agenda. Surely they wouldn't do that, would they? Surely they wouldn't be that heartless. I mean, it's not like they expressed their desire to see the president's 12-year-old son put in a cage with pedos and raped, is it? This also broadcasts the message that any illegal alien wanting to cross into America just has to bring a kid with them. MS-13? ISIS? Come on in! Putting the kid at risk of death, rape, and sex trafficking.
We don't even know how many of these kids don't make it and may have been waylaid into sex trafficking or killed.
Because the left really cares about the children. At least Canada cares about the children. As Trudeau said, this is not the way we do things in Canada. Except that it is.
But Paul, there was a kid on tape crying. Rachel Maddow cried on TV.
Just
14 heartbreaking photos that will make you say fuck having borders and law and shit. Here's the bottom line. Trump knows what's happening in Europe. He's seen the surge in violent crime, the murders, the rapes, the ghettoization, and he's standing up against an onslaught of faux outrage and contrived virtue signalling from a deluge of morons who would quite happily see America turn into a crime-ridden cesspit so long as it satiated their Trump derangement syndrome. Remember, the left wants America to fail. They want the plane to crash, even though they're on it.
I feel like the bottom has to fall out at some point. And by the way, I'm hoping for it, because I think one way you get rid of Trump is a crashing economy. Yeah. So please, bring on the recession.
So no, the same people who say we should display humanity to MS-13 gang members who rape and kill children don't get to lecture us about humanity towards children. You can argue whether Trump's zero-tolerance policy was implemented badly or not. You can argue about what the real solution should be. But please, save me the sanctimonious moralizing about how much you care about the children. Because I'm not stupid, I wasn't born yesterday, and I'm not buying it. You don't care about the children, you care about power. Raw power, and nothing more. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video. You know all those concentration camps on the border AOC has been telling us about? Well, she's actually found one. Just look at the raw emotion, the pain, the anguish. Oh, the humanity!
I'll never forget this because it was the moment I saw with my own eyes that the America I love was becoming a nation that steals refugee children from their parents and cages them! I feel her emotions in every single picture, especially the last one. It's pure anger, and how can one not feel anger after seeing what she saw?
Really? So what did she see? Distraught children separated from their parents, Mexican minors left to suffer alone in metal cages, crying kids interned in barbaric concentration camps. Turns out, it was an empty parking lot. Oh, the humanity!
It's pure anger, and how can one not feel anger after seeing what she saw?
I mean, sometimes I get a bit peeved if I see a car parked slightly over the line when there's plenty of room, but pure anger? Not really. Why so serious? I mean, we know AOC is big on the environment. Maybe she was mad at the lack of trees.
I saw with my own eyes that the America I love was becoming a nation that steals refugee children from their parents and cages them.
Yeah, you saw with your own eyes a few bored cops and a few dozen hysterical sanctimonious idiots pretending to cry over nothing for a crass photo op. That's what you saw. Oh, the humanity. I'm just glad that Uncle Joe was there to comfort her. I'm just glad that she was able to visit a Planned Parenthood abortion mill afterwards to cheer herself up. Oh, the humanity. I'm just glad that this photographer and this photographer and this photographer all captured her authentic, in-the-moment, grief-ridden reaction to an empty parking lot in photos that were definitely not staged. This definitely wasn't a photo op attended by over a dozen virtue-signalling celebrities, and it's definitely not a little odd to show up to a protest in the middle of a desert dressed in a pristine white outfit wearing bright red lipstick and a luxury watch, because this definitely wasn't staged.
Oh my gosh, I am so upset. I'm just like, oh, I didn't even know there was gonna be a camera crew here today. You need to let those children go! Oh my gosh, I can't take it. I'm gonna faint. Let those children go!
Did you get that? Did you guys get a picture of that?
Guys, please make sure you get my $1,000 Gucci watch and my designer boots in every shot, okay?
When you're wanting Chick-fil-A really bad and you realise it's a Sunday, when you accidentally step on your dog's foot. After gorging herself on burritos and retried beans, AOC realised she had picked the wrong day to wear white. When you realise the electricity it takes to power waste disposal units means the world's gonna end in 11 years, not 12. When the bread line is too long. Alright, no more boomer memes, I promise. AOC's reaction in these photos is about as authentic as her fake black accent.
Looks like ain't nothing wrong with that.
Not authentic. It's about as authentic as her claim of growing up in the Bronx. When in reality she spent most of her childhood in Yorktown Heights, which is 90% 100% white, not authentic. It's about as authentic as her claim to care about the financial struggles of working-class New Yorkers, when she literally helped cancel a deal that would have brought 25,000 new jobs to New York. Not authentic. It's absolutely crucial for you to help me fight the war on free speech by supporting me via Subscribe Star, link in description, and also signing up for my free newsletter at summit.news/newsletter.
So let's talk about the border crisis in the United States. It begins with an activist organization called Pueblos Sin Fronteras.
Has been shot dead after firebombing an immigration center. And he's a 69-year-old. He was armed with a rifle, and of course you won't hear much from the anti-gun lobby regarding the situation. He was fatally shot by police. What he did was he went to an immigration center in Tacoma, Washington, and threw incendiary devices at it. And the officers were called to this privately around 4 o'clock in the morning. The man...
Portugueses, se não votarem no PNR, isto vai ser o vosso futuro. Têm mesmo que votar no PNR. A única maneira disto não voltar a acontecer é votar no PNR, senão este vai ser o vosso futuro. A Antifa Portugal, que é financiada pelo Bloco de Esquerda e paga pelo Bloco de Esquerda e financiada pelo Bloco de Esquerda e pelo Jorge Soros, Antifa Portugal está quase a fazer o mesmo tipo de atentados.
Devices at it. And a lot more to it that needs to be talked about. An armed 69-year-old anti-fascist has been shot dead after firebombing an immigration center. And he's a 69-year-old. He was armed with a rifle, and of course you won't hear much from the anti-gun lobby regarding the situation. He was fatally shot by police. What he did was he went to an immigration center in Tacoma, Washington, and threw incendiary devices at it. And the officers were called to this detention center, which is privately run, around 4 o'clock in the morning. The man, he's been identified as, does it really matter who wants to talk about it? And he had set a vehicle alight with his explosives. And then he was attempting to ignite, or the belief is he was attempting to ignite a large propane tank outside the building. Now, the Tacoma Northwest Detention Center is a holding facility and has been for quite a long time for migrants, illegal aliens, as they are about to be deported. And of course, recently it has also housed parents who've been, the phrase that's used in the media is that they has been separated from their children. Now, of course, there's no way to know this for sure. It's at least not easy to find out for sure. A lot of people do end up gathering some children or renting some children in order to appear as parents. Of course, they don't tell the truth consistently about them being their own children or whether or not they are in fact refugees. So parents have been separated from their children. Why? Because people are lying about it. You know, like when you go to the bank and they say we need a 5-day hold on your check, the check you're trying to deposit, it's not because the bank is mean, it's because people, they cheat. They kite checks, they frauds. So it's not the bank's fault that there are people who are frauds. I remember when I worked on a radio station when I was in university. I was a DJ, and there was a guy there. This is just when ATMs were coming out, and there was a guy who worked there who was like, "Oh man, ATMs is fantastic. You know, I can create a whole bunch of fake bank accounts, and I can withdraw the maximum, and I can make a bunch of money." And it was just immediately went to the scam angle. And so, because of the scam angle, we have this massive jerkwad overhead of having to have all these checks and balances in place because people lie like crazy. They lie about being migrants, they lie about being refugees. They lie about their immigration status. They lie about whether people are their children. People just lie a lot. And having to deal with the fact that people lie a lot is the reasons why there are these challenging. We wouldn't need any reviews. We wouldn't need any courts. We wouldn't need any lawyers. We wouldn't need any lie detector tests. We wouldn't need any of these things if people didn't lie fairly consistently. But of course, it's the fault of the detention center it's the fault of Donald Trump, and it's not the fault of anybody who lies. So this was about 6 hours after there was a peaceful rally held against deportations outside the center. And the old guy, was shot dead at the scene, and all 4 attending officers shot their weapons. He was described locally as a committed anarchist and anti-fascist. Now, he did criticize communism, but usually he said that his big inspiration was, well, I guess there were a couple. There was some guy who's a long, rambly, crazy talker at AA meetings. There's another guy who was a violent abolitionist from the last century, Mike Brown, I think, I can't remember his name. And then there was Howard Zinn, People's History of America, and Emma Goldman, right? This Jewish communist anarchist who was a big fan of the Soviet Union until she realized it was very repressive. So when people say anarchist, they're not talking about people who don't want there to be rulers. They're talking about anarcho-nihilists or anarcho-socialists, anarcho-communists, and so on. They would rather have a local tyranny than a central tyranny, which of course always ends up with a central tyranny. Now, a friend of his, who'd been a friend for like 20 years, Deb Bartley, told the Seattle Times that she had received letters from this guy, the domestic terrorist, obviously, which said, oh, I'm just saying goodbye. And then there was a manifesto, and I did read the manifesto, but it's a bunch of crazy stuff that doesn't have any particular relevance to anything. Now, the friend of his said, I think this was a suicide, but then he was able to kind of do it in a way that spoke to his political beliefs. I know he went down there knowing he was going to die. And in his manifesto, he talks about being heartbroken and sad about, I don't know, X, Y, or Z, who knows, right? He could have had a fatal illness. He could have had a girlfriend break up with him. The fact that he was a big fan of a guy who is a rambling, kind of incoherent, messily spiritual Alcoholics Anonymous speechifier, mean that he had addiction issues, and maybe he had liver problems or whatever it is. Anyway, so, and if it was suicide by cop, that's just an asshole's way of hitting the high road, because now you've traumatized these cops and all of that. So I really, really don't like this kind of stuff at all, of course, right? So the guy believed to have had previous run-ins with law enforcement at the detention center in 2018. He was reportedly among 10 people taken in by police after occupying the perimeter of the site. He was then, of course, only 68 years old, and he was arrested on suspicion of third-degree assault. He jumped on the back of an officer as the officer attempted to apprehend another activist, and he ended up with was it deferred or suspended sentence. Basically didn't see any jail time, so good thing. Good job, courts. Sounds like you really got someone there and let him off with a slap on the wrist, because he was totally reformed after this. So this friend, he's been associated with Antifa, and Antifa have certainly been cheering on this guy. His friend believes his intent in attacking the center was to provoke a conflict, of course, similar to the Christchurch shooter from earlier this year. Now, there is some, obviously, people on the far left are either cheering it or studiously ignoring it, but it's really, really important to understand this, right? So, as you may or may not recall, it was not more than a couple of weeks ago that I and a whole bunch of other people were on the cover of the Sunday New York Times. Boy, it's just great to know when you've made it. So proud. Send a copy to my mother. And we were on the New York Times Sunday edition cover, me and a bunch of other people, including Milton Friedman, because, you see, we had radicalized someone. Someone had been radicalized by philosophy or arguments or data or information or perspectives and so on that go against the leftist narrative. Radicalized. Now, the young man in question, what had occurred as a result of his radicalization? Well, according to the mainstream media, you see, he'd gotten a job and a girlfriend. Now, his girlfriend was Christian. I guess that's radical. For some people, have a Christian girlfriend. I think the writer of the article, Kevin Roos, had married a woman who was Jewish, so maybe it was just really radical to date a Christian. I don't know. But Here we have a case of clear-cut radicalization, right? So you have had a bunch of leftist politicians, a bunch of Democrat politicians. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been beating this psycho war drum for weeks, calling these places concentration camps and implying that ICE and detentions are like Nazis. And this is a clear call for violence. Violence is like when you call someone a Nazi and you refer to people in Nazi terms, concentration camps and so on, you're painting a laser on their forehead, you know, like you paint for the smart bombs to hit. And the target, the invisible target that you're painting on people's forehead is, hey, these people are stone evil, so hey, you know, do what you will kind of thing. And so there's either been a sort of, well, we agree with the end but not the methods, or yay, brother comrade, rest in peace, took one for the cause and so on. And no one has asked, of course, any of the Democrat politicians who were incentivizing violence or calling, not explicitly but implicitly, for violence by calling these people constant.
Não se esqueçam que a Antifa Portugal é financiada pelo Bloco de Esquerda e pelo PCP. E pelo PS, acho eu também. Mas pelo Bloco de Esquerda e pelo PCP
All of these
são financiados.
Institutions of concentration camps and so. No one's been asked to disavow. If you call people Nazis in these places concentration camps, some crazy guy with a rifle went and firebombed or tried to firebomb the place and got shot dead by police. Where's CNN? Where's CBC? Where's the New York Times and all this radicalization? Well, they're not there, of course, because they implicitly, I believe, agree with this kind of radicalization. So 2020 presidential candidate in Washington, Governor Jay Inslee, connected Trump to the attack, and I quote, "Along with many Americans, I object with every fiber of my being to Donald Trump's inhumane treatment of immigrants in America. But violence is not acceptable. We must be better and seek non-violent ways of pursuing the better world we want, as so many groups are doing." Now, of course, this is false on every conceivable level, right? So it's not Donald Trump's inhumane treatment of immigrants in America. Donald Trump isn't just out there being mean. See, there's this funny little thing called the law. Now, you may agree with the law, you may disagree with the law, but the law is not just Donald Trump's opinion. The law has been voted on, the law has been reviewed, the law has been discussed in the public sphere. People have had the chance to weigh in and weigh out and review it, and that's the law. It's not just Donald Trump's inhumane treatment. It's like Donald Trump is enforcing the law. He's enforcing the law. Like, was it Time magazine had this article, it was on the cover, and the article was a bunch of, children of the corn-looking Hispanics with eyes like a Camaro's high beams, and they were, we are Americans, just not legally. Just not legally. Of course, being an American means having the legal citizenship, technically, and by reality, it's sort of like saying about bank robbers. Well, we withdrew money from the bank. It's not legally. I mean, so, first of all, it's not Donald Trump's inhumane treatment. He just wants to make it about Donald Trump rather than these are the laws that were reviewed and voted on. And of course, inhumane treatment of immigrants in America, they're not immigrants. See, if they were immigrants, it'd be kind of tough to deport them, right? It'd be kind of tough to separate kids from them unless they broke some other law. So that's strange. Inhumane treatment, yeah, you know, it's a funny thing. I don't know why people are confused about this. Funny story. If you have a government and you break the law, unless you're the Clintons, they will arrest you and they will put you in a holding facility. And guess what? You get separated from your children. You can go rob a bank and you get arrested. They don't throw your newborns in the holding cell with you. You're separated from your children. I don't know. Again, it's just one of these bizarre things. Like, I went to the circus and there was noise, trapeze acts, lots of clowns coming out of tiny cars. It was weird. What's up with that? I mean, this is what the government does. So anyway, it's not Donald Trump. It's not inhumane treatment. It's the law, and it has to be enforced. It's not Donald Trump's perspective, and so on. Anyway, so one Antifa account called Rev Abolition Move, with almost 3,000 followers, wrote, and I quote, "R.I.P. to anarchist fighter, blah, blah, blah. The attack on the facility in Tacoma is a proportionate action against enslavers and internment camp operators. He joins a long list of fallen anarchist martyrs who fought for a liberated world. Okay. So this is their perspective. If you disagree with the law, then you can use violence against those who are enforcing that law. So if you disagree with taxation, then according to this logic, I'm not saying people should. I'm not saying it's even moral, but according to this logic, if you disagree with taxation, you can take the necessary steps. And it's crazy. And there are, of course, a lot of leftists who are praising this kind of stuff. Here's another one. This guy targeted ICE infrastructure in a bid to save lives. He is a hero and we grieve his loss. Rest in power, comrade. Another guy, his name was X. He was a 69-year-old elder comrade who last year tried to free a 17-year-old from police during a protest at the same ICE center. He literally gave his life for the cause. Rest in power. Remember him.
Grave violation.
Sean King, you may remember Talcum X, called for the concentration camps to be liberated, quote, by any means necessary. By any means necessary. So this is where the left is. If you disagree with the law, you can go with a rifle and an incendiary device, and you can blow up a car, obviously, and you can try and blow up the facility with people inside. This is where they're at. This is what's going on. Now, of course, can you imagine? Let's say that there's someone who's an anti-leftist. Mr. X, right? Mr. X. He's an anti-leftist. He's criticized communism, socialism, and so on. I would say on the right, because anyone who criticizes the left is considered, I mean, Tim Pool, who's certainly not, I mean, he's pro-socialist in many ways, a Bernie Sanders supporter, and for socialized medicine and all, he's suddenly far right, right? And so if you criticize the left, let's say that you have a follower or somebody who has listened to your rhetoric and so on, and that person then grabs a gun and goes down and tries to blow up a building with people inside it. The media would go absolutely mental on you, would try and get you shut down and deplatformed, and would rouse popular sentiment against you. You'd have to go into hiding. I mean, it would be mad if the follower of a critic of the left went and used violence against laws he, or perhaps she, disagreed with. The media would. But you see, here we have a bunch of people calling these places concentration camps, and the gods are Nazis, and all of that. And of course that's going to start triggering crazy people. Of course! Lots of people out there don't have a life, don't have connections, don't have meaning, don't have virtue, don't have love in their lives, have very little to live for, and would rather live on festooned with black roses, the stems of which are barbed wire, in the annals of crazy, nasty people. They would rather live on in that memory than continue on their miserable existence. So they're going to grab a gun, as this gun seems to be, according to his friend, kind of like suicidal, and that's how it's going to roll. And if it was an anti-leftist, people would be going insane. And of course, if it was an anti-leftist, there'd be massive calls for gun control because this guy had a rifle and he was nuts. And evil. I mean, if he'd succeeded, how many people could have died? But this one's going to vanish, you see, because it's a leftist terrorist. It's been inspired by leftist Democrat rhetoric. I mean, so Ilhan Omar called for eliminating ISIS existence. Then, of course, sorry, that's a bit confusing. I don't mean ISIS like ISIS. I mean ICE''S. Eliminating immigration control and enforcement's existence. Eliminate its existence. And then a terrorist tries to bomb an ICE facility. You understand? Ocasio-Cortez is, you know, as I said earlier today, having these weepy interviews with a well-coiffed woman, mysteriously not in custody, about how her toddler died in these inhumane facilities. There are a lot of crazy people out there. And yeah, Antifa praising and cheering all of this kind of stuff often. Well, this is what happens, right? These are the people who shut down my desire to go and give a peaceful speech on philosophy And I said, you know, you can stand up for me, for Lauren Southern, for other people who are being attacked in this kind of way. You can stand up for us if you want. Or you can just kind of let it slide. And then what do? Well, everything is a trial balloon, you understand? Everything is a test case. Can we get away with this? Oh, we can? Great. Let's escalate. Oh, can we get away with this? Oh, we can? Oh, great. Let's escalate. You understand that they escalate until we're all face down in a ditch. And for all of the people who, when I was being attacked, as I have regularly been in public speeches in New Zealand, in Canada, in Australia, you know, I put it out and said, you know, you got to stand for this. You can't stand for this kind of stuff. You got to push back against this kind of stuff. For all the mainstream media that were cheering them on and all the people who ignored what was happening to me, well, this is your next step. This is where you allowed them to get to. This is where you permitted them to go. You want to see what's on the next level? You want to see what they're going to do next? Just keep ignoring it.